Alright, so what we're going to do today is demonstrate the simplest, easiest, and most foolproof way to use the ISO-3 to make whole plant oil. And to do that, we have some hops here that we're going to extract. We will extract the hops and then we will reclaim the alcohol, and then we will purify the whole plant hops oil, and then we will remove it from the machine to where we get every bit of it out of the machine. So the first thing I'm going to do is fold a filter paper and fit it into the extraction basket. So an easy way to do that is kind of like this. Push it in there. Push the edges down so they go all the way on the bottom, and ascertain that the holes on the top are open. So we're going to take some hops. These are hops flowers that are quite nice, pale green. I'm going to put about an ounce in. Like so. Now we take a piece of paper towel and we make what's called a spreader sheet. And the purpose of this is to spread out the drops of alcohol which will drip into the center of the extraction basket. So something about like this, make it kind of round. We want to make sure when we put the spreader sheet in that it doesn't touch the filter paper. It should come kind of close but not touch it. So it is right there in the center. And what this does is as the alcohol drips onto the spreader sheet, this will cause it to disperse out over the entire charge of hops flowers. Now before I put the hops in, I took this particular piece and I wiped it down really good with alcohol. So I'm going to do that on the inside of this now to show you how that's done. So we have our washout bottle. We take some of our paper towels. Let's work this down. Take off the condenser. Wipe this thoroughly. Now we're going to take out the processing vessel and we'll wipe it down also. While we have the processing vessel out, we reach in there, we make sure that it's off, we unplug it, and we reach in there and adjust the bulb so that the bulb's going to be about 1 inch from the bottom of the processing vessel. Okay, the next step, we put the extraction basket directly into the processing vessel. Now we're going to add about 200 milliliters of ethanol. The ethanol that we're using is 192 proof Everclear, or it could be 192 proof spiritus, or it could be lesser proof alcohol, which we can use to make whole plant oil. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to measure out 200 milliliters of ethanol. Now what we want to do whenever you're working with ethanol, you don't want to just pour it into here, and you don't want to open the ethanol and do your pouring in any proximity to a stove or a pilot light or anything like that. So your best bet is to go to an area which is remote from where you're working and pour your ethanol into one of your beakers. I'm going to the sink to pour the ethanol. And I'm going to take the ethanol that we're using and store it away from the operation in its sealed bottle. We're putting 200 milliliters of ethanol into the processing vessel. Now what we want to do, we want to add the ethanol so that it saturates the hops and it fills the processing vessel underneath the extraction basket to between 1/2 inch and 1 inch. So making sure this is off, making sure it's unplugged, we're going to pour it right down, saturating everything. And there's our 200 milliliters in there. Now, we lift this up, and as you see, there it is coming out. It's already turned a little bit of a color, and it looks like we're going to have our inch or so in the bottom of the processing vessel from this amount of alcohol. Actually, it's going to add another 50 milliliters of alcohol. So I'll take my beaker, get my alcohol, go away from the operation, and we add another 50. And we write this down. Now I hear it dripping through. I check this. It's coming out nicely. It's looking like about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch in there, which is exactly what we want. So, the next step, we take the condenser. This I'm moving away. This is our washout alcohol. We don't want this near the machine. Now I'm going to attach the condensing unit. Now this is something that you want to practice a few times before you actually do it. And what you practice is grabbing the 2 rings, pulling them down with equal pressure, and hooking each ring to the post. And by practicing it, put them on, take it off, put it on a few times, get a good feel. Because if you don't have a little bit of practice doing it, you might tend to pull one down harder than the other, which would cause this to tip. And we're going to be putting tap water in the top. So if it would tip, the last thing you want to have happen is the water to wash into your extracted whole plant oil. So now we have the condenser attached. We take one of our 1.5 quart vessels, and we're going to put tap water in it. This water doesn't need ice, doesn't need to be cold. Probably shouldn't be hot, but it will warm up while things are in operation. So now we look at the unit, we make sure everything is straight and level. We add water now till there's about 1 inch of water in the condensing unit. This is a very good thing for adding it. And this is better than the beaker because of this lip. Okay, we have about 1 inch of water in it. Next step. And now we set it and forget it for anywhere from 6 to 12 to 24 hours. The difference between the 3 times is that in 6 hours what we will have is an extraction which will have virtually all of the medicinal elements of the hops flowers and not a whole lot of the other things which are in the plant, such as chlorophyll, various tars and resins and things like that. A lot of people believe that in making whole plant medicine, you're better off having everything that Mother Nature saw fit to put into the plant. If you run it for 12 hours, as it's sitting now, you'll get virtually probably 95% of every soluble element that's in there. If you run it for a whole day, if you run it for 24 hours, you can get 100% of the soluble elements. The way that you know when you've extracted everything is the plant material, first of all, turns the color of light brown straw. And then the second test that you do, you could see when I was holding the extraction basket above the processing vessel, that the solvent dripping out the bottom has some color to it. When that solvent drips completely clear, you know that it has washed out everything that is in the plant. So generally what I like to do, especially for whole plant oil, is set this up one day, let it sit for 24 hours, come back the next day, and then extract and then complete the process, knowing that in that 24 hours you have virtually everything that was in the plant. And so what we do now is we're just going to let this sit for 24 hours, and then we will come to the next step of the process. So it's been 24 hours. Why does time fly? And what I will do now is open this up, and we will check on the extraction progress. The water that we have in here, this is just tap water, and since it doesn't touch the product that we're making, the tap water is just fine. However, one thing that does happen is this gets hot and the water evaporates, and after a month or two of use, what will happen is some of the carbonates and salts and impurities that are in tap water will start to collect here in the bottom of the condensing unit. It can just be wiped out. You can get a little brush and scrub it out and it'll look brand new, but if you don't want that to happen, what you can do is use distilled water, and then you won't get any buildup in your condenser. Okay, this has been running for 24 hours. Now we're going to open it up. So the first thing that I do is turn off the switch. Next, I grab the two rings, and like I was saying before, we pull down on them evenly and in a practiced manner so that we can separate the condenser from the unit without the condenser up here moving. And once you practice this a couple of times, it gets real easy. So we lift the condenser off carefully, and I'm going to go dump the water from it in the sink. Now we look in here and we check for our extraction. I lift out the spreader sheet, and I see that all of the hops flowers are now the color of light, bright yellow straw, which is what we want. Now we look under here, by lifting this up and turning it, we can see some drips coming out. Those drips are clear. The fact that the drips are clear indicates that everything that we wanted is down inside the processing vessel dissolved in alcohol. So the next thing that we're going to do is remove the alcohol from the oil. The way that we do that, we're going to take the hops flowers out, and we're going to save them for afterwards, in which I'm going to show a technique to remove the residual alcohol from them. So to save them, I'm just going to put them in a plastic bag. Take the filter paper out also. Seal this up because we're going to collect most all the alcohol that's in this later. Yeah, we've wiped down the collection vessel, the extraction basket, and we've saved the wet extracted hops flowers. We put the collection jar into the basket like that. We set it on here. We know that the light bulb is an inch from the bottom of the basket because that's where we set it. If it was closer, we would have to pay more attention. We put the condensing unit back on, grabbing both of them together. Down they go and hook them over. We'll get some water now. We add the water to about an inch. We turn this on. We wait about 6 hours, and after about 6 hours we can open it up and we will remove a good bit of alcohol, and it will, and once we do that, there will still be alcohol oil solution in the bottom of the processing vessel, but it will be have a lot less alcohol than what is there right now. been about 6 hours. We're going to open it up and see how our alcohol collecting is going. So first we turn off the switch. It's good to let it sit for like a minute or so to just kind of cool off a bunch more. Carefully, equal pressure, off with the condensing unit. And I see that we have reclaimed this much alcohol in the reclamation jar. So I'm going to go put this back in with our clean, fresh, new alcohol. Okay, we remove the extraction basket. And now what we're going to do is we're going to set it up in water bath mode. First of all, what we have in here is very dark alcohol oil mixture. And the bulk of the alcohol is gone. There's still enough to make it squishy and pliable and able to be rinsed out. So I'm going to take the alcohol from this, the alcohol oil mixture from in here, and I'm going to put it into a 1.5 quart processing vessel. So we carefully remove this. Okay, I'm going to go get my spatula. We're going to pour what we can and get the rest of it out. First of all, I'm going to get it to one side with the spatula. Now, just set the spatula out, and I'm going to put 1 inch of tap water into the processing vessel. Hot tap water. Put the processing vessel back in the unit. Put the water bath part in. We're leaving the top off. And we turn it on. Okay, so this is run for a few hours. We look right in the top. It seems like almost all the alcohol's gone. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do the last step, which enables us to not lose any of the oil and to get the oil out of the processing vessel in a manner that is doable. So almost all the alcohol is now gone. So we see the oil in there. It's thick and black and gooey. I'm going to add about 25 milliliters of alcohol back to this. Now, we went and got the alcohol away from this. Turn off the switch, of course, and we're going to put just enough alcohol in here to redissolve the oil. Put it in, swish it around. It's still warm, so it dissolves fairly easily. And we're back to it all being dissolved. Now I'm going to take the silicone cup and we're going to pour the real thick alcohol oil mixture into the cup here. Okay, I'm going to put another little dab of alcohol in here. Swish it around, get everything. And in it goes. Okay, all of our alcohol oil mixture is now in this cup. Okay, so now we have all of our alcohol oil mixture is in our little silicone cup. We very carefully lift this up, being careful not to spill it. We set it right on the flat bottom. And then we turn it back on, which I will do right now. Okay. And now we wait. And as we look at this, we'll see that little bubbles are going to start to form in the top of the alcohol oil mixture. These bubbles will happen for the next couple hours, then they will start to subside. Once it's subsided, then what we can do is we leave it in there for a little while longer to make sure the oil is all gone, and then we pull it out. Now, our alcohol oil mixture, which is now all oil pretty much, is kind of thick and gooey in here. I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it in the freezer. Our cup has been in the freezer for several hours, and now it's time to remove the oil. As you can see, we have a nice solid hockey puck type thing here that one can hold like this. There's very little oil left in the silicone cup. This gets put in a glass jar. It will heat up and melt, and that is the oil that you use. So thank you for watching.